Today, we're looking at Insecticide Part 1, an action-adventure game developed by Crackpot Entertainment and released for both Windows and the Nintendo DS in 2008, which might be the strangest dual release we've mentioned on this channel so far. Insecticide was the brainchild of Crackpot co-founders Larry Ahern and Mike Levine, former LucasArts employees who envisioned the game as an action-adventure in the truest sense of the word, a blend of action-oriented gameplay and puzzle-solving adventure segments in the style of games like the Monkey Island series. On paper? That sounds awesome. I'm a sucker for adventure games, more so in the style of LucasArts where puzzles could have really obscure solutions, but there wasn't really a way to get yourself stuck hours in because of a mistake made hours prior. You have all the pieces you need to solve the puzzle, you just need to figure out how they fit together. Not to say I'm against the style of Sierra's adventure series, and if you love King's Quest and stuff like that, hey, more power to you. Suffice to say, with this pedigree and premise, Insecticide already has my attention. Insecticide introduces us to a world in which a mass increase in pollen levels has given the entire human race such a bad case of allergies that they've been forced underground. In our absence, insects quickly became the dominant life form, constructing their own society in the image of our own. Remember that cartoon Fish Police? This is nothing like that. Okay, it's kinda like that. Insecticide follows the investigations of Chris List, a rookie detective with a mysterious past who works for Troy City's Insecticide division. The game's story is told primarily through FMVs between stages, often narrated by Chris's partner Rochi Carruthers. And since this is my channel, I have to point out that Rochi is voiced by Gregory Abbey, who voiced Raphael in the 2003 series of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, not again.
Are you alright, partner?
Yeah, it's just an exoskeleton wound.
Chris, meanwhile, is voiced by Veronica Taylor, who voiced April O'Neil in the same series, and nobody else of any importance.
Put your hands up. All of them.
Starting a new game, we're given an ad for Nectarola, a beverage so popular in Troy that its only remaining competitor is water itself. And even then, Nectarola has already replaced water as what comes out of the tap. Could you imagine soda coming out of your faucet? Ugh. Wait, but what if it's mug? Nectarola is gearing up to release a brand new flavor, Manchurian Cherry, touted to be
An explosion of cherry flavor!
And if you think I'm wasting your time talking about a fictional soft drink, you're wrong. But let's unpack that. Chris and Rochi are hot on the trail of a bug suspected of a recent bombing attack involving volatile Nectarola. Chasing this so-called soda bomber up to the rooftops, we get our first taste of gameplay. Unfortunately, that taste is something like, well, I was gonna say Vegemite originally, but then I looked at some very tasty looking Vegemite sandwiches, so maybe that's not an apt comparison. I've never actually tried Vegemite. Okay, if we hit 1,000 subscribers, I will try Vegemite. Watch me like it, I'll look very stupid. Alright, so how does the gameplay taste? Well, maybe I should have seen the game's other release being for the DS as an omen, because fuck me if this game doesn't taste like a DS 3D platformer. Actually don't, that's nasty. For someone with 4 legs, Chris moves slower than you'd think, and there's something about the way that she handles in the air, more specifically after her second jump, that feels very odd to me in a way that's difficult to convey through a non-interactive medium. The game assigning jump to both space and my right mouse button, however, reminds me of Shrek 2 for PC, and you should never remind me of Shrek 2 for PC. There's also the matter of the camera, which isn't itself hard to control, but has a nasty habit of getting caught on game geometry in a way that makes it suddenly jerk forward when you're passing by objects. I don't think it ever caused any problems, but my brainworms demand I bring it up. Beyond basic platforming, our primary threats in these stages are the enemies which inhabit it. Almost every level has a different enemy, but that singular enemy is copy-pasted throughout the stage with little to no variation. Imagine Doom, but if every enemy was an imp. When defeated, enemies often drop Nectarola cans to restore Chris's health, usually more than they could have dealt, so I would say that you're more likely to die to bottomless pits than anything else. Either that or this game's incredibly vague fall damage, which seems dictated less by actual height and more so by whether or not the developers wanted you to be able to drop down somewhere that way. For a quick example, imagine if Crash Bandicoot had to fall down these 3 platforms, but falling past the first and directly onto the second is enough to kill him. Now snap back to reality, because that's how this game operates sometimes. Fall off a tightrope safely onto an area from which you reached the tightrope in the first place? Most games would just have you climb back up onto the tightrope and try again, but Insecticide?
Death.
Luckily you just respawn at the last checkpoint, which in that case is most likely the start of that tightrope you fell off, but it's still weird that we're playing a game where falling more than 6 feet can be fatal when the game wills it to be. In terms of weaponry, Chris starts the game with only her pollinator, a wrist-mounted pollen gun that regenerates its ammo over time. The other guns in the game require ammo either dropped by enemies or found lying around, but they function on retro shooter logic. No reloading, if you have the ammo, you can fire. My personal favorite is the Nectar Blaster, our surrogate shotgun, if only because the spread makes it harder for enemies to dodge it. We'll talk about the other weapons when we get there. For now, we chase the suspect into an alley where Chris finds herself in the headlights of a truck, and the game rewinds to earlier that same day. Yep, this is one of those games that starts at the end. The game really begins with our first adventure segment at the Troy City Police Department, and boy is it 2 minutes of something, alright. I know adventure game puzzles are actually pretty quick to solve if you know what to do, but Insecticide's puzzles are so easy to solve that you could have accidentally picked up the objects you needed to solve the puzzle before you even know what the puzzle is. Puzzle 1, open your desk, take your recorder, get a statement from the hominid in the holding cell, that's it. Puzzle 2, Rochi needs a donut, which are literally 7 feet away, right next to the other item we need for this puzzle. Give him the donut, give him the coffee, open his desk to find the creamer he wants for his coffee. Congratulations, we just solved the puzzle with the most steps in this level. You might think I'm being too critical of the puzzles in the game's first adventure segment, but I sort of have to, because this level is the first of 3 adventure segments in the entire game, and we're stuck doing the most basic of problem solving. Puzzle 3 isn't even a puzzle, it's just a Mad Libs you can't fail no matter what words you give it.
Buff, rubble, arresting, kinky.
Puzzle 4, put coffee in this guy's cup, he gets out of his chair, and we grab this file he was sitting on. Our next level is also an adventure stage, and it's here that I felt the strongest connection to the point and clicks from which Insecticide drew its inspirations. Easily the best level of the game, which naturally means it only lasts 3 minutes. A death has been reported at the Nectarola factory. During rehearsals for the product reveal of Manchurian Cherry, a prop had fallen from the rafters, crushing a worker bee standing in for Nectarola's president, Honey Quinbee. Honey Quinbee is... okay, let's be real, she's very obviously the villain of this game. The advert at the beginning played its hand so hard that even if you didn't understand the allusions in the new flavor's name, if you managed to watch it and not pick up on the villain vibes, you have zero media literacy, and that's probably why you enjoy this show. It's not just that these kinds of twist villains are common, it's that it's so rare for the suspiciously sweet character to not end up being the twist villain that they made that the entire plot of the Lego Movie 2. Quinbee's gonna be playing the unwitting victim for a while, so she's not gonna be much help right now. We need 4 pieces of evidence before we can leave, one of which is the sandbag right next to the victim. Take his script too, because Insecticide does the adventure game thing I love, where you need to examine an item to reveal how it may be useful to you. In this case, yielding a paperclip, which we examine again to bend into a lockpick. Around the corner, we ask the director to move this robot blocking the staircase, and up on the rafters is a locked crate. The paperclip breaks when we try to pick the lock because Chris tagged small guns and speech instead of security. Now, this is where the game stumped me for a little bit, but you need to use this broken paperclip to push out the hinge pins on the box and take the whole lid off. Now that's classic LucasArts. Take the knife, cut this rope to drop a chandelier, go back downstairs, tell the director to make the robot take a bow, snag his turnkey, mosey back over to the stage where we grab a wingtip that fell out of the chandelier, and use the turnkey to open the prop robot, revealing a bomb that had failed to go off on impact. There's all the evidence, but weirdly enough, when Rochi's looking it all over, he seems to completely ignore the wingtip and instead focuses on the claw marks on the knife, matching those of a small arms dealer by the name of Styx. Naturally, Styx is a stick bug, because of course he is. Styx isn't willing to cooperate, opening up with a shotgun and making a run for it, bringing us back into the game's action section. This one is the most heavy on tightropes, having us switch lines on the train tracks while avoiding electricity, but other than that, the level is pretty easy to breeze through courtesy of our new Nectar Blaster. I'll take a moment right now to talk about the visuals, and in my opinion, Insecticide looks like a PS2 game I would have loved as a kid. Considering it came out in 2008, 2 years after the launch of the PS3, that's sort of a backhanded compliment, but I do mean it. Insecticide's aesthetic reminds me of the Sam and Max series with a little bit of Psychonauts mixed in. The exaggerated character models, the dingy city of Troy, the chunky oversized guns, the fact that their cars are designed to look like cocoons, I love it. Catching up to Styx, he squeals about a drop-off he'd made at a diner the night before to Quinbee's would-be assassin. As he had plans to meet the buyer again tonight, Chris and Rochi head down to the docks to catch the perp red-handed. This is our final adventure segment, sad to say, and it consists of a single puzzle. Take these contest forms, grab some pencils, give them to the patrons, wait for them to fill them out, then compare the signatures to the receipts from the night before. Our assassin is a spit bug by the name of Artie Fleming, the bug we were chasing at the start of the game. As Chris presses Artie for information, she threatens to run him in
Faster than you can say, it's an explosion of cherry flavor.
Get back!
Artie seems like he's about to go postal, but before he can hurt the waitress, a group of mysterious robots blast open the roof and attempt to abduct him. The same robot bugs that Chris has routinely been seeing in her dreams. These robobugs are the new main enemy for the rest of the game, sporting nectar blasters of their own and lobbing cans of explosive Nectarola as grenades. We get a grenade launcher of our own to deal with them, and while it does put them down with a direct hit, the splash damage works more like damage over time and leaves something to be desired. Fighting the robobugs, we make our way across the docks in pursuit of Artie, finally catching up to where the game had started as that truck full of robobugs crashes into the city center, now swarming with their fellow soldiers. And this level? Ooh, this level sucks. First off, these robobugs hiding in manholes that retreat back underground when you shoot at them, so they can't be killed, which means you're going to be taking small arms fire from every direction for most of this level. Second, the game suddenly dumps a bunch of new weapons on you in an environment that doesn't really encourage experimentation. We get the Nectar Cannon, which is full auto and seems to pierce enemies, proximity mines I never used, and the Amberizer, a gun exclusively used to kill the final boss. The weapons aren't bad, but the design choice puts a weird taste in my mouth, and I'm pretty sure it's not Vegemite this time. Between the manhole bugs and the bugs on the rooftop, you are going to be pelted with projectiles. Now what if I told you that you need to tightrope walk over the manhole bugs while they fire nonstop at you? Evidently, you can kill the manhole bugs with the proximity mines, but the game never told me that. At least, this game never told me that. I'll explain soon, but I didn't know about that playing through this stage, and I'm totally not mad about it. That's great, that's fine, yeah. Our final boss is a spider robot outfitted with machine guns, which we need to trick into shooting these generators before we go activate the rail system. Using the Amberizer to freeze the spider bot in place on the tracks, the bot gets rammed by an oncoming train, and, in its damaged flailing, knocks the helmet off one of the robobugs, revealing the pilot to be a hominid. Before Rochi and Chris can interrogate the hominid, his allergies cause him to explode, leaving them with a lot of snot and unanswered questions.
Well, this put my antennas into a twisted knot. So this left us with a murder, a string of bombings, a deranged acid-spitting bug, some exploding soda cans, an army of robo-suited hominids, and a splitting headache. How those hominids figured into Chris's nightmares, we had no idea. But hey, who says dreams don't come true?
Naturally, things went wrong. Enter South Peak Games. Y'all remember South Peak, right? They published X-Blades? Well, okay, get this. In October 2008, the same month Insecticide Part 2 is set to release, South Peak Games rolls in, purchases Insecticide's publisher, and cancels the project. Do I think South Peak did this intentionally to sabotage Insecticide? No. I think South Peak saw that Gamecock Media was preparing to release several promising new titles, namely Legendary and Mushroom Men, and thought they'd scoop them up to reap the benefits. So I guess we'll never know what happens in Part 2, right? Those questions will never be answered, and you'll lay awake at night wondering whatever became of Chris List in her quest for the truth. If you think that, you're wrong. The DS version of Insecticide was released with both parts on day one, so if you're willing to forgo the comforts of PC gaming, Insecticide can be played through in its entirety. But before we get to that, let's wrap up my thoughts on the PC version. Insecticide Part 1 kills it in basically every aspect but the gameplay. It may not be the most graphically impressive game, it's got a sort of ugliness to it, but it's a willful ugliness that helps sell the city of Troy as this seedy, corrupt place full of freaky mutant bugs. The music and voice talents are both on point, and it's frankly impressive because I feel like if all of these aspects of the game didn't work as well as they do, I wouldn't feel nearly so mixed in my overall opinion of the game. Unfortunately, this pretty package is wrapped around a game that can't even manage to be too little too late because it's simply too short. The game has barely any time to hook the players before it's over, and the best bits, the adventure levels, are the shortest and least common. The rest of the time, you're doing incredibly basic platforming while fighting a dozen clones of the same one bug. On paper, Insecticide sounds exactly like my kind of game. A quirky action-adventure in the same vein as Psychonauts, blending a genre I love with more engaging moment-to-moment gameplay. In practice, I'm sorry to say it, but Insecticide sucks. At least on PC. Next time, we'll be looking at the DS version of Insecticide. Let's hope it's better than its PC counterpart. That's happened before, right? Right?